Welcome to the Cocktail Guru Podcast,
a show about food, drink, and entertainment,
with a tight focus on the good life,
and all things delicious, luxurious, and fun.
I'm Jonathan Pogash, bartender, author, TV personality, and founder of the Cocktail Guru.
And I'm Jeffrey Pogash, wine and spirits professional, author, insatiable collector of culinary ephemera, and so people tell me, an engaging raconteur.
And my dad. Well, Dad, we are on to another episode of our Cocktail Guru podcast, and you know what I'd like to do more often, Dad.
What's that, John? I have no idea.
You have no idea. I'll tell you right now. I'd like to educate our listeners on various types of spirits because we always talk to guests, and they're oftentimes friends of ours, and we've known them for a while, but the people listening may not know them. It might be a little bit over their heads, perhaps, just because we have that relationship with those folks. But I'd love to bring in, spirits experts to talk about what they are geeky about and to really do a little bit of a deep dive, as much of a deep dive as we possibly can in the allotted time.
Well, naturellement, of course. I mean, there are two reasons why we do these podcasts, but one of my primary reasons, is to preserve a piece of history. History of mixology, history of wine, history of spirits, history of entertainment as well, because we do have guests who are in the entertainment industry.
Yes, we've had, Kelsey Grammer has been our biggest guest.
Exactly. And the second reason is education. Of course, we're here to try to teach ourselves as well as the general public, because there are a lot of things I don't know, like the subject we're going to discuss today. I'm just learning about it, really. I started tasting a few years ago, but not extensively, and it's thanks to our next guest that.
And I think it's amazing.
More involved.
Yeah, amazing to learn because you never stop learning. I always say that I don't know everything, obviously, and you don't know everything, Dad.
I don't.
No, you don't.
Oh, okay.
But what I wanted to do, or what we'd like to do today, is talk about a spirit that is not very known in the West, but it is known in the East, and it is a spirit called Shochu. And we have probably one of the foremost experts on that category. He's an author, host, diehard Tokyo Swallows fan. Oh my gosh. He's very enthusiastic and knowledgeable about Japanese spirits. That's where Shochu is from. It's from Japan. He launched a company called Honkaku Spirits in March of 2020. Great timing there, young man, with the mission of bringing an intensely artisanal Japanese spirit to discerning American consumers, especially koji-based spirits, including shochu, awamori, and koji whiskey. And we'll talk all about that because it might be Greek to other people out there, or Japanese, rather. He's from Bristol, Vermont. Received a BA in Spanish from Wittenberg University, MA in Teachers of English Second Language, English as a second language, and University College of London. But before we bring on our guest, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
There's nothing better than the smell of coffee in the morning. What if you could enjoy a coffee subscription of fresh, roasted specialty coffee while making a difference in the lives of the farmers that grow it? What if you also had access to a virtual coffee community of other coffee lovers and the coffee farmer and roaster? That's all part of the Farm to Cup Coffee Club subscription at Unleashed Coffee. Subscribe today. UnleashedCoffee.com.
And we're here. And Dad, who are we bringing on as our shochu expert today?
Mr. Christopher Pellegrini. He is a master, a shochu master, and I have attended his tastings virtually in the past. And guess what I'm holding? I'm tasting one of his fine products. And it's the Honkaku distillery that is involved in producing and bringing together some of these great shochus. And the one, I don't know if I should mention the one.
No, let's let him talk. Hey, Chris.
This is one of my all-time favorites. It's delicious.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to see both of you. And welcome to the rabbit hole. And thank you for allowing me to invite all of your dedicated listeners to the rabbit hole as well.
Of course.
And you and Chris, I have to say, you are, I believe, the first guest to be streamed in from as far away as you are. This is the furthest we've ever spoken across the streaming platform.
This is by far the most exotic interview we've had so far.
That's right.
Zip code 187-003, beaming in from Tokyo, Japan. It's a true pleasure. Thank you very much.
Wow. Well, we always ask our guests when they come onto the show, what is your desert island drink? And it's okay if it is your product.
I think I'm gonna need to go with a more of a category of or a subcategory of spirits.
Sure.
And it would be sweet potato shochu, I think, would be my desert island go-to. I mean, once
Dad is freaking out about your answer.
I'm freaking out because guess what's in my glass?
It's the sweet
potato.
I'm going to mention
get that
it's called colorful. Okay.
Okay.
Now you can explain what that is if you'd like.
Well, yeah, I mean, probably a lot of people out there don't know what shochu is, and I apologize. Am I jumping the gun here?
No, yes, no, I think that would be great. Let's give a little bit of an overview on the category, cool. The category itself. Yeah, we'd love that.
So shochu and also awamori are, let's call them Japan's indigenous spirits. They're hundreds of years older than whiskey, which has only been made in Japan for a little over a century. And these spirits are unique because they are single pot distilled. And what that means is, if you know anything about distillation, this is quite rare in the world of spirits. It's just one pass through a pot still. That means that these indigenous spirits from Japan taste like what they're made from. So if you make a shochu from sweet potatoes, which is an approved ingredient, then it's going to taste like sweet potatoes. And if you make it from barley, it's going to taste like barley, and so on and so forth. It's quite complicated, though, because there are 53 approved ingredients by the tax office here in Japan. So it's an incredibly diverse spirits class that, of course, the trade-off being when you have high esters, high aroma from the fermentation, from the mash, you sacrifice some of that ABV, that alcohol by volume. So these are not the most powerful spirits that you've ever encountered. They tend to be bottled at 25 to 30% ABV, which is typical in Japan. And they are delightful. They can be consumed a number of ways, as they are in Japan. Yes, they can be used in cocktails, but traditionally they were blended with hot water and cool water, and today often sparkling water, and of course poured over the rocks. But it really is, and I say this all the time, and unfortunately it's still true, they are Japan's best kept culinary secret. They really are. Wow. They outsell sake here in Japan, which is mind-boggling for most people when you consider that sake really is the poster child for Japanese drinks, really, when you think of it from an outsider's perspective. But here in Japan, they're consumed before meals, during meals, after meals. They are incredibly flexible and just absolutely lovely.
And these are delicious. Just to build on what you said earlier, these are balanced. They're beautifully balanced. They're smooth. They're relatively high. They're not that high in alcohol, but relatively 25 to 35%, something like that. And
they are certainly spirits.
But you would never know. A spirits drinker might taste this and say, "Oh boy, this doesn't taste at all like alcohol," and it doesn't. It tastes like the product. It tastes like sweet potato. It tastes like whatever is being used, buckwheat, for example. I don't know. And it is just luscious. They're complex and very smooth, eminently drinkable.
And what?
And they're difficult to make.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sure.
Right. A lot of the process is pretty incredible. What is it that sort of got you into this category and into Japan? And I know that you moved there at one point because you kind of have a love for Japanese spirits.
So I started out making beer in the United States. I worked for a small brewery called Otter Creek, which is in Middlebury, Vermont. And I was there in the 90s. I was actually brewing for them for a while when I was still a teenager, which, as a lot of people, that's a glitch in the matrix for them, I'm sure. But it is legal to make. It's just not legal to consume.
Right.
I was the youngest commercial brewer in the United States for a while. And it wasn't because I necessarily deserved the job. It just happened that our first and second brewer kind of were not available, and then there was an emergency, and I got thrust into the role after kind of making a name for myself as a home brewer for a while. So I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know how to do it at scale, and that's what I learned. And I developed a fascination for and an appreciation, really, a passion for small batch drinks, in this case beer, that people would line up to either fill their growlers with, or that they told their friends about. And I was immensely proud of my job as a teenage brewer. I brought that passion and that excitement with me to Japan many years later. I graduated from university. I was in Korea. Boy meets girl. Girl wanted to move to Japan. I was like, cool. So it was at her behest that we moved here. That was back in 2002, 20 years ago. And we're still here. And in the interim, while I was searching the beer scene, when I first got here, it was not a pretty sight. And I ran face first into shochu and awamori one day at an izakaya before I could speak any Japanese whatsoever. And the guy was messing with me. And he's like, today, weirdo, you're going to try this. And I had been drinking sake up to that point. And then he kind of surprised me with a barley shochu, which I was not expecting. And I had never heard of shochu before, honestly, up to that point. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, wow, that's not sake. He's like, no, it's shochu, drink it. And so, long story short, after 5 different glasses of different types of shochu, they're all clear. They all taste wickedly different because they're made from different ingredients and they're just single distilled. So, what you have is what you get.
Yeah.
It's like the WYSIWYG editor in WordPress. It really is, whatever you're working with in the fermentation, that's what's going to present or express in the distillate. And I was just fascinated. I was like, how can you have one of these tastes like sweet potatoes, another one tastes like buckwheat, another one tastes like brown sugar? How does this work? And where do they make it? And that was the beginning for me. That's how I really started to get into shochu. And I'm the type of person that when I get curious about something, it's very, very difficult to dissuade me or knock me off course, especially like it was in early 2003 when Wikipedia was just getting going. There was not a shochu page. I had no source for information in English. So the only thing I knew how to do was to go there and figure it out myself.
And boy, you found some really great ones because you became friendly with distillers, I believe. And then eventually you were representing their brands, collecting them and selling them in different markets. And boy, and Honkaku, if I am correct, means authentic.
Perfect.
So all the producers you have are truly, craft, authentic producers of shochu. And it shows in the flavor, in the complexity, and the deliciousness of the product.
Yeah, I don't think that, I know there are a bunch of people that we work with who are like, can we please get some brands with slightly higher volume? Because we're a little bit like a wine importer, even though we're dealing in spirits. We're just bringing in really small batches of these things, and they can't make more. I mean, these are, 4th generation, 5th generation family-owned businesses that really had only supplied their local neighborhood. And I can't get some of these brands in Tokyo where I live because they don't need Tokyo. But fortunately, as you said, Jeffrey, these are friends. They're friends of ours. And over the years, after helping them and trying to get the word out on their behalf, when we finally started Honkaku Spirits in March of 2020, we were able to go to them and say, hey, I know this is crazy. Hear me out. We want to bring it to bi-coastal in the States. And they're like, huh? And that at first they thought it was a joke. In fact, we did have some people going like, right. Yeah, sure. You, the college professor. Okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure you know how to sell shochu in the United States. But, kept going back and saying, listen, just shave off a small allocation. We're going to bring it over. We're going to try and tell this story to spirits lovers. We're going to try and tell it to bartenders. And we believe that we can get people to see the light here, because these are made by amazing people in very small batches to ridiculous standards. And, it's about the people, it's about the place, it's about the process. And that story hadn't been told up to that point. And so we're having a heck of a time doing that now.
Fantastic. Great.
And you have these relationships that you have with, your distillers and the families. I see here that you're working with Japan's only female master brewer distiller.
There are a few of them now, and this was not on purpose. They were friends too, and this might not be surprising to anyone, but they were the ones that were the quickest to sign on. And a bunch of the, I don't want to go too deep down this hole, but a bunch of the guys were a little bit too set in their ways, and it's like, well, that's not how we do it. That's not, we don't need foreign markets. It's like, yeah, I totally understand that you don't need Tokyo, you don't need foreign markets, but trying something new could be a good thing for your brand. Who knows? And the women were just like, yeah, let's give it a shot. They almost didn't bat an eyelash. We have 3 female toji, Toji, which means master brewer distiller, in our portfolio right now. We're working on onboarding a 4th, and that's basically almost everyone in the shochu world. There's about 270 active shochu and awamori distilleries down in Kyushu and Okinawa. The ones that are run by women, you could count them on 2 hands, I think. And so it really is just a sliver of the industry. And we're just fortunate. We're really lucky that they were our friends before we ever thought about drumming up a business.
And are these younger, new producers, are they making a product that is different from the traditional shochu? I understand that
I think that's
might, in the 70s, they might have been a little heavier in style, not quite as interesting, not as flavorful, and they've become lighter and fruitier in modern days.
That's a great question, and you are right on the money with that guess. Back in the day, sweet potato shochu, for instance, they just had, we'll call it prehistoric now. They just had inferior equipment and slightly inferior techniques, and honestly, the variety of sweet potatoes, the varietals available just were not as good as they are today. So everything's kind of bumped up several levels. And yes, the shochu of today is not like what it was back in the 1970s when shochu started to hit the dial for a lot of people in the bigger cities around Japan.
And it was in those days, the early days, a blue collar drink, wasn't it?
That's right. It certainly was. And it was a southern blue collar drink. So down in Kyushu, it really wasn't a thing in Osaka or Tokyo.
And now it's young and upscale.
I hope that it's becoming that way. That's the goal. But you may have noticed that the demographic crunch here being what it is, and the fact that, people don't drink as much as they used to. I mean, you don't need alcohol necessarily to slide into someone's DMs. You don't need that liquid courage anymore. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift, a little bit more mindfulness in the way people imbibe, which is a great thing. But I just want to say, everybody, drink quality and drink slowly.
Absolutely.
That's probably the key.
That's the name of the game. And speaking of drinking slowly, I'd like to slowly sip on some of these samples that Dad and I received, and we'd love for you to kind of walk us through a live on-air tasting of your products. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break and come right back. Hey everyone, Jonathan here. If you're into swag as much as we are, then look no further than our Cocktail Guru shop. The items in our store have been personally chosen, handpicked with care by me, I'm Jonathan, and my team of Cocktail Gurus. A water bottle with a stainless steel straw? Yep, T-shirts, hoodies, the snapback hats, signed copies of Mr. Boston Bartender's Guide, cocktail box kits, bar tools, and more. You betcha. We've even managed to create a onesie for that mocktail lover in your family. So head on over to shop.thecocktailguru.com and use code GURU23 for 10% off your first order. It's a great deal. That's shop.thecocktailguru.com, 10% off with code GURU23. Cheers. And we're back from the commercial break, and looks like you got a little bit of a head start, Dad, there.
Yes, I did. I've been tasting my favorite shochus because, unlike you, Jonathan, I've been participating in Christopher's tastings, and I've been lucky enough to get a head start on tasting these wonderful products, which I have been doing for about a couple of months now. So I'm learning quite a bit at a fast pace. And
Well, what should we taste first?
Yes, Christopher, you decide what we should taste first.
I think we should start with Mugi Hoka.
Oh,
I've got that. Yeah, I've got a little sample here.
You said the right thing.
Mugi Hoka.
You said the right thing.
I don't actually have the U.S. label, but it's very similar to the Japan label. The U.S. label just has a little bit more English on it, but it looks a lot like this.
Cool, yeah.
And it has the same script down the center.
Yeah, beautiful looking bottle there.
And Jonathan, you have not tasted this yet, have you?
I've tasted shochu before. I have not tasted these
No. I mean Mugi.
Oh, cool.
I mean
this
Mugi.
is exciting.
I'm sorry. Yes.
You're in
Mugi
for a
Hoka.
treat. You're in.
Oh
for
wow!
A treat.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a barley shochu, 100% barley, and it's made with a little bit, about 12% of the mash bill is roasted barley, which is where you get all of the toast from.
Oh yeah.
And it's a little bit of coffee. It's a little bit of chocolate.
Yes.
And it's only 25% ABV, but it has a lot of character.
Oh yeah. It tastes like it. I mean, it smells like it's higher proof than that, but wow.
See, I wasn't going to use the magic word, the word that got me to love this particular shochu, and that is the C word, coffee. Yes, it does. It tastes like coffee beans, like freshly roasted coffee,
yes.
like you're munching on coffee beans. That's what it tastes like.
Right, like the chocolate covered
espresso
bean
candy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I just had one of those yesterday, actually.
Wow. And boy, this is
perfect time.
Delightful. Okay. Just delicious.
Can we taste it?
Mm-hmm.
Can we taste it?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
And again, it's so smooth. And
oh yeah. Ooh.
Smooth and flavorful. Not what you're expecting.
Crisp. Yeah, it's crisp and it's clean. You know, when you smell it, you're like, wow, there's quite a bit of funk in there, and then you taste it, and it's very refreshing. It's very mellow.
Mm-hmm.
And
strictly,
we like this one on the weekends when you're finishing up the dregs of the pot of coffee.
What?
And it's just after lunch. You got probably enough in there for another cup of coffee, but it's cold now, so you pour it over ice. Pour about a shot and a half of Mugi Hoka in there. Top it up with sparkling. It's a nice kind of brunch spritzer.
Well, why not for breakfast? Why wait?
It doesn't have to be for brunch.
Why wait for brunch?
That's true.
No, I can see drinking. I might do this tomorrow morning. I might drink this with my coffee, a cup of coffee, and have my breakfast.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, morning's fine. It's not foolproof. You
know what else I can see doing with this? I'm sorry, Christopher, if this is sacrilegious in any way. It's not meant. It's not meant to be.
Go for it.
But I'm thinking, because one of my favorite drinks, a drink that I produce on a regular basis, is the Bloody Mary.
Oh, okay.
I could actually see making a certain
to
type of Bloody Mary with this Mugi Hoka. Yeah,
that sounds very interesting.
I would have to modify it, but I think it would be a luscious, absolutely.
I would agree actually with you, Dad.
At one of the rare moments. Thank you, John.
So what do we have next?
Next, let's move on to Goro.
Oh, Goro.
Okay. Got that right
We're
over
going to
here.
switch over into sweet potato shochu territory now. I have a bottle. I actually have the U.S. bottle for this one. It looks like this.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I'm going to... And Goro is a sweet potato shochu that is made on the southern of the two Koshiki Islands in Kagoshima Prefecture. Also 25% ABV.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a nice kind of introduction to sweet potato shochu, which is very near and dear to my heart. It's got the sweet potatoes front and center. It's made with black koji, so it's got a nice subtle balance between the sweetness and the earthiness. There's this really interesting, almost like there's this chocolatey component to it that kind of weaves in and out of there. And this is a really interesting drink to kind of work its way into an Alaska, I think. If you take the gin out and the yellow chartreuse and the orange bitter, it's really nice. Is what I have to say about Goro.
Oh wow. Yum. I'll have to try it in Alaska. That's very interesting.
And just so our listeners and viewers can understand, koji is a type of mold, correct?
That's right.
Yes, and it's used.
That's right.
Used to make miso and soy sauce and all kinds of other things like that.
All the delicious stuff in Japan.
So good.
Yeah.
All the umami things.
That's right.
Yes,
the umami components and characteristics are definitely aided and abetted by koji use in terms of saccharification and fermentation. And without koji, without this native mold, this wild mold strain, Japanese food would not be what we know it today.
Wow. I'm big on umami. I study umami as much as I can. So that's why koji is most important.
Absolutely.
And okay, what's next?
Hold on.
The next one, we're going to stick with the sweet potato here, but we're going to a totally different type of sweet potato. The sweet potato shochu that we just tried is made with the most common type of sweet potato in Kyushu, at least for making shochu, and that's called kogane sengan. You don't have to remember that, but you might read it pretty soon in the future if you start Googling shochu. Kogane sengan is by far the most commonly used type of sweet potato. Why? It's neither too sweet nor too earthy. It has a great starch content, and more starch obviously leads to more glucose, which leads to more alcohol potentially. And it's not hard to work with. It's not too messy in the still. It's just a really, really suitable type for making shochu. But this next one, which is called Colorful and made in neighboring Miyazaki Prefecture, is made with what you could call a red or a purple sweet potato, a very different type of spud. And you're going to notice it as soon as you put your nose in this glass that, oh, wow, this is a totally different animal.
Oh yeah,
and this one's way fruitier.
Yes,
it's way more floral.
I get the leech. I get lychee, and
I just tasted the goro, and the goro is also sweet potato, but
yes.
The goro, I think I understand what you're saying. You said it was for beginners, people who are just starting out.
It's more standard.
It's a much lighter in flavor. Lighter than colorful, and colorful is just boom, sweet potato.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying in an overpowering way at all. It's just the deliciousness, the concentration of sweet potato coming through in the glass, and it's just amazing that you can get that in a spirit. It's really amazing.
This is a great indication side by side with Goro too of how diverse even a single subcategory of shochu can be. I mean, there's 6 varietals or more used to make sweet potato shochu these days, and they go from, as white as this piece of paper once you hack them open, to the most ruby, like Dorothy slipper, color, and everything in between, like orange, everything. And they all express very differently in the fermentation, especially when accounting for different types of koji and different types of yeast, fermentation temperature variations. And there is so much diversity just in the sweet potato shochu subcategory alone that you could spend half a lifetime just trying to get your head around it. It's really fun.
Wow.
Colorful is a very apt name because this is colorful in your mouth. It is.
It's very bright.
bursting in your mouth with flavor.
Yeah.
It's just
Color in your mouth.
delicious.
Color in
I
your
love
mouth.
it. I love it. That's the
Okay.
label.
Oh,
This
nice-
is the
nice
this
label.
is the U.S. label,
Yeah.
which is a little bit colorful, not a complete spectrum, but purples and blues and just a lot of fun. This one, in terms of success personally with mixing things, it has worked surprisingly well in a Negroni. It is pretty easy to slot in there. It's easier than it should be almost. But colorful's another one that's found a lot of new fans. And once bars latch onto it, it almost like they take the whole allocation for that part of the state. It disappears really quickly.
Wow.
So
Chris, in which markets can some of these shochu be found?
we are primarily distributed by Winebow.
Great.
And then in other states where Winebow is not present, then we have found other ways to get in. We're probably in 20 something states now. Most major markets we're in.
That's amazing.
So
it's wonderful.
And we've
been very fortunate.
We've got one final one here.
One final one. This one is Yokka Koji. So
Yokka Koji.
Yokka Koji is the only awamori in our portfolio, and awamori predates shochu by a couple of decades at least, and it is the spirit of Okinawa. It's a 100% rice koji spirit, and usually bottled at 30% ABV, but this one's 43, and this one is nuts.
Yeah, it is.
It's called Yokka Koji. Yokka means 4 days, and Koji means koji. So it's a 4-day koji, which is twice the length of a typical koji propagation before fermentation.
Oh, yeah.
So they let this koji grow into the rice, the polished rice, for double the amount of time that is standard. And it just leads to all of this crazy depth and shape shifting in the flavor profile. And I love it. I think it's fascinating. Oh, I have a bottle of this.
Oh, it's really good. This one is definitely the funkiest of all of them.
Here's Yokka Koji. This again is the Japan label, which we only just barely touch. This is such an iconic label. The logo is fantastic.
Nice.
And so it's the exact same form factor with the bottle in the US. Should be pretty easy to spot on a shelf. This one just is amazing. It starts out with that graininess and that nuttiness, and that's like, oh, hey, wait, here's a little bit of like sesame for you. Yeah. And then it backs off. It's like, oh, hold on. How about a little bit of Japanese pear? And then it's like, caramel, whatever. Who cares? Just let's put some age in there. It's a very young spirit, actually. There's no age on it whatsoever. It's like, I think it goes into the bottle after only resting for about a year. It's really not very long in the tooth, but it just has so much going on. So that one's hit a lot of bars very, very quickly and forcefully. You will not be surprised that it finds its way into espresso martinis very quickly.
Oh yeah.
So it's a fun one. That one for me, if it was a little lower proof, I would probably drink it a lot more frequently. But at 43, I can't just like throw them back like I can with the 25s.
Right. To me, this feels and tastes more like a true spirit, much higher level of alcohol, and not, for me, not quite as smooth as the others.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that too. And this is awesome. What's next? What's on the plan? What kind of plans do you have going on for this year or for the future?
Well, we plan to keep frustrating our distribution partners by bringing in very small allocations of a successive number of products. We've got other friends who are just waiting in the wings who have promised us maybe 50 cases a year or 100 cases a year, and so we're really excited about that. We have the one thing I think I'm most proud about is the fact that the things we're bringing in, when shochu nerds based in Japan hear that these things are ending up in the United States, they react in one of two ways. One is complete shock that somebody knew to pick those small, like super nerdy brands. They're like, wow, somebody really knew what they were doing. The other reaction, which is probably equally common, if not more common, is pretty intense anger because we're shorting their supply. The domestic supply is having a chunk of it shaved off to go to the States. And so I've gotten, mostly tongue in cheek, but I've gotten a number of text messages from other shochu nerds that I've been, on the circuit with for a couple of decades now, who are just like, I can't believe that you're taking this away from us. I'm like, well, we got important markets to develop, and we've got a lot of potential shochu lovers out there that I promise this will do more good than bad long term if you just work with us. But it really is. It makes me very proud that these tiny little distilleries making these amazing products have agreed to work with us, because I still can't believe we were able to do it. Yeah, I really can't. And there are some that have still held out until now, but they're coming around, I think. And this year should be very interesting because we've got what's called our reserve line. We've already got a couple of products in the market which are just complete unicorns, and we're going to supplement that line, the reserve line, with a whole bunch more just of these really small batch, amazing single batch distilled shochu and awamori products. And I can't wait for you to try them.
And just
That's
one
amazing.
more quick
Yes.
question, Chris. You said the Yoka Koji is not aged. How about the Goro and the Colorful and the Muji Hoka?
The Mugi Hoka, they're all quite young. Goro, I think, is probably the old. Well, no, that's not true. Colorful is a blend of a couple of different purple sweet potato distillates. One is older than the other. I think if you average it out, they're going to be about 2 years old for the whole thing. That is right in line with Goro. And then Mugi Hoka is also quite young. Oh, hold on. No, it's not. It's not anymore. It is now we're at the end of a tank that was 5 years old when it went into the bottle.
Okay.
So that's going to shift. And quite frankly, with that one, because the roast notes are so strong, it doesn't really matter if it's 2.5 years or 4 years old. It really doesn't. It doesn't change all that much. It just is very assertive. It knows who it is, and it doesn't hold back.
So that roasted character will still come through.
That roasted character doesn't quit. Yeah.
And Chris, before we let you go here, you mentioned something about a podcast, baseball podcast that you do for the Tokyo Swallows. Yeah. What is this?
That's right. It's a complete passion project. It's probably the oldest of the 3 podcasts I'm currently associated with. That's the oldest. We've been doing it for probably 10 seasons now. We put out 1 or 2 a month, and it's just because we love the team so much. Finally, the last 2 years, the team actually got out of its own way and was good, but that's not normal. They'll probably regress to the mean very shortly.
Oh boy.
The Swallows, do they play in the United States?
They do not. They're a Tokyo team, one of the 2 teams here in Tokyo. They're kind of the New York Mets of Tokyo to the Yomiuri Giants or the Yankees.
Because I did go to a minor league baseball game close to here where I live in New Jersey, and the game that we saw happened to be against a Japanese team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe was that a preseason game or something? Or was
it was during the season, I think. It was
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it might have been like an exhibition game. I don't know, but it was very good.
Very possible.
Good game.
Well, baseball and shochu, perfect together.
Oh, yes.
And your products, Christopher Pellegrini, are perfect. I mean, they are delicious, and we've really appreciated your time and learning more about the category and tasting these spirits. So we thank you for joining us.
My pleasure entirely. Thank you both for having me on. And to everybody out there, sip slowly, sip Honkaku.
Yes, sip Honkaku Spirits. Delicious, delicious. Tipple Time is brought to you in part by Monin Premium Gourmet Syrups and Glenmorangie.
Well, hi again, everyone. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode of the Cocktail Guru podcast. And it is once again time for Tipple Time. Jonathan, that's me, of course. And this is the segment where I make you a cocktail. You listen if you're just listening to my voice, or you watch and listen if you're watching on the website, which of course is the cocktailgurupodcast.com, where you can listen and watch both together. How about that? You could see my face. You could see the beautiful products here. And I'm going to go right into this cocktail. I'm really into highballs these days. And a highball is basically, well, it's the name of a glass as well as the name of a drink. It's any kind of spirit with some sort of sparkling beverage in it, usually soda water and whiskey. Well, whiskey highball. And this is a variation on a whiskey highball that I call the Kiwi X. So here's a product I love, Monin. You've seen me use Monin products on the podcast before. This is their Kiwi. It's this really interesting color. And you may be thinking, folks, this is bright green color. Is it natural, Jonathan? Is it a natural green? And yes, actually it is. It's an all natural green color, which is lovely. So the Kiwi has this beautiful, it has real kiwi flavor in there, which is amazing. And I have the Glenmorangie X, which is a single malt Scotch whiskey made specifically for cocktails, for mixing. And it was actually crafted with inspiration from bartenders and by bartenders. So we're adding 1.5 ounces of the Glenmorangie X directly to this highball glass. And I love the detail on this glass here. I don't know if you could see that. It has this cool dragon. This is a company called Cascada. And they've turned me on to these beautiful etched glasses. Now I'm adding ice directly to the highball glass. And we're going to fill it up all the way to the tippy top with some ice. Yeah, more ice. The more ice, the better. Okay, now we'll top it off with some tonic water. I actually have some elderflower tonic. You can use soda water. You can use ginger beer, ginger ale. And just give it a little top off, just like that. Oh, yeah. Look at that. It's a nice color. It's like this emerald. Yeah, it's like an emerald green color. We'll take a nice stainless steel straw, and I have some lavender, some dried lavender, which we'll just sprinkle on top. There we go. And so you get that lavender. Kiwi lavender works really well with the Scotch whiskey. Oh my gosh. Look at that, folks. Friends, I'm going to take a little sip. Yes, that is what we call a porch pounder. You can sit back on your porch and pound them as the weather starts to get warmer. Well, cheers to another tipple time. Until next week, well, until 2 weeks from now, where I'll have another amazing cocktail tutorial. Cheers.
Tipple Time is brought to you in part by Glenmorangie and Monin Premium Gourmet Syrups. On the next Cocktail Guru podcast,
there's like a area of servers way off in the distance, and they'll go, ah! Like just to, like, I hear you, you know what I mean? I'm coming. I was like appalled, like, oh my God, we're failing these people. We were pissing off our guests. I'm wrong. It's me, I'm the problem, right?
To quote Taylor Swift.
On the next Cocktail Guru podcast. That does it for today's show. If you enjoy what we do, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also support the show with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. Just click on the donate button at the top of our website and choose your donation amount. To learn more about our guests, visit www.thecocktailgurupodcast.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok.
The Cocktail Guru podcast is produced by First Reel Entertainment and distributed by EatsDrinksTV, a service of the Center for Culinary Culture, home of the Cocktail Collection, and is available via Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, and wherever you listen to your favorite shows.